Hey, it's Greg on here with MaritimeGardening.com. Today I'm going to take this garden that looks like a complete mess and get it ready for next year. I actually think I'm going to plant some strawberries here as well. It's a little bit late for that sort of thing, but I think I can probably push it, right? I think it's not going to, hopefully it'll be reasonably, they need about a month to get established enough to make it through the winter. Give or take, all things being equal. You always got to say that because someone's going to say, hey, I did what you said and it didn't work in. It's not a mathematical equation out here, right? It's more like an art, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Anyway, I thought I'd put this garden, get this garden under control, because this is one of the main things I hear people say: I don't have time to garden, the weeds, it's too much work, blah, 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 blah. So here's a garden that I planted beans in last May, and I haven't done a thing here in this garden other than pick beans since I did that. And I mulched this with hay, and I got a great crop out of this. I got a lot of beans out of it, and area wise it's about 3 feet wide by 7 feet long. I get a lot of food out of this garden, and all I did was spend 5 minutes plugging beans into the ground. So I mean, that's the way it should be. So I want to get this ready to be successful for next year, and so that's what I'm going to do. I think people have it all wrong with weeding. You know, they'll go around and just recultivate the soil all season long, and all you're doing is stirring up the weed seeds that are laying on top of the ground and giving them a chance to germinate. So it's a lot easier just to sort of leave things alone, and that way when you do want to pull your roots, they have these nice big long, right, they just come out easily, right? So I mean, I'm going to weed this garden. You're going to see it's not going to take long. This garden has never been tilled, but look how soft the soil is, right? This is counterintuitive to people that till their garden every year. They're always kind of mystified. Oh, it just broke off. Always just kind of mystified that everything just pulls out and the soil's nice and loose. That's all you got to do. Actually, no, I brought these clippers to cut the beans off, but I'm finding that they're breaking off at the base anyway, so that makes it that much easier. That way I'm leaving the roots in the ground, but I don't have to do that extra step. I mean, look at this soil. Just beautiful, soft soil. Right, and all this was the existing clay that was here, and a layer of horse manure, and just successive applications of mulch year after year. See how I just sort of bent that bean and broke it off. I want all the roots of the grass out. I'm leaving the roots of the beans in. And the reason this is easy is because the soil's soft. And I know it doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but and I didn't grow up with this approach, but your soil stays a lot softer if you don't till it. I'm putting all this stuff in a bucket because I'm going to put it all back on when I'm done. Everything goes right back. And I'm not planting beans here next year, so I'm not worried about bean diseases or what have you. Alright, so you see the general principle here? I'm just going to fast forward this so you don't have to listen to me jabber through the whole thing. Just thought I'd bring it a little bit closer to show you how I'm breaking those off. I'm just sort of grabbing it very low at the base of the bean and just sort of snapping it like that. Right? I'll do another one here. I just sort of grab it low and snap it sideways. Then most of the root hairs are staying in the ground. I don't know how much more of a difference it makes. Recurring guest on my podcast, author of the book Garden Myths, Robert Pavlis, has made the argument that it doesn't make much of a difference at all. and all the nitrogen that the beans are able to generate, because they do pull it out of the air and fix it in the roots, that all of that nitrogen is used by the bean plant. And that's a good argument. So I don't know. But it's no harder to do it this way than any other way. So, if it does benefit the soil to leave the roots in, great. And if it doesn't, I haven't made it any harder on myself by doing this. So it's I don't mind the extra step. That's a pretty serious rhizome. All right, so that's all done. And don't worry about the bean, like the sort of stems and roots that stay in the ground. They're not a cold hardy plant, so all this would just turn to mush over the winter and kind of turn into nothing by next year. It'll just be food for the things that live in the ground, right? It'll die and rot and become food for all of the organisms that perpetually improve your soil. Now I'm going to put some strawberries in here. Where am I getting my strawberries from, you may ask? Well, I've got a strawberry garden here which has gone totally out of control. It's a question of bed design. It's a source of a whole other series of videos I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to get into it right now why this strawberry bed went out of control. Stay tuned. I will address this. Anyway, it's sending all these runners out in my walkway, and so these will make ideal plants for that garden because they've already rooted up a bit. Some of them have, some of them haven't. So I'm just going to take the ones that have put roots into the ground, try to get them with a bit of the soil they came with. I'm trying to work quickly here because I can feel that it's going to rain very soon. These two are sort of married together, so I'll let them stay together, I guess. Again, don't worry about the leftover beans. This is an ideal week to do this because I think it's going to rain all week. So I don't need to, it's going to sort of be overcast and rain all week, so I don't need to cover these or baby them or anything. They should just sort themselves out, hopefully. It's a nice one there. Notice how I'm doing just about everything with my hands. I mean, there may be some, I know lots of people will comment and say, I can't kneel down, I can't do that. And boy, there might be a point in my life where that is a problem. And, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But, for anyone that has their mobility, my advice to you would be, keep your body doing those things. Put yourself in a situation where you have to bend and stretch and reach and all that sort of stuff. If you have that, that's not a problem for you. That's how you keep that going, by putting yourself in that situation. This one's got a beautiful root ball and hanging off. I'm trying to put these about a foot apart, give or take. That's a nice big one. I got some seaweed here I'm going to throw on the ground so that the ground isn't exposed, because we're no-till gardeners, Ruth Stout gardeners, back to Eden gardeners, whoever you want to name it after, permaculturists, David Holmgren, Bill Mollison gardeners or whatever. We don't want to leave the soil exposed, right? That doesn't do any good at all. I'll keep an eye on these over the next few weeks. I don't want this flower here. That's not really got much future. And if the plant if any of them seem to be struggling, I'll just pluck some more up and stick them in the ground and, see what happens. That's the great thing about propagating strawberries from your own strawberries. It doesn't matter if it fails. You're not out a whole bunch of money. Not a big deal. And I know I just put a video up of me doing this, but like any sort of teaching area, repetition's everything. It's good to see something done over and over again more than once in different contexts. And you know, for anyone that's maybe a little bit put off or overwhelmed at the prospect of having to take a weedy garden and, you know, get some semblance of order into it. That's another reason I do this sort of thing, because you can see me do all this, and you know, it really doesn't take that long. It's doable for an ordinary person with a 9-to-5 job, because that's exactly what I don't make a living doing YouTube videos. This is not how I feed myself. I'd be pretty hungry if this is how I did it. Okay, I don't have enough. I got to go pick some more. I'm going to shut this off and go do that. You know, I've seen people do videos where they take the strawberry runner as it comes off the strawberry, and they set it in a little cup with soil in it, and then they let it root into that cup, and then they, you know, use that like a transplant, and that works. But to me, it looks awfully tedious. I haven't got time to mess around like that. I have found that, you know, just let it root into the ground and then pull it out of the ground with a clump. Ideally with a clump of soil on it, but even if you just bare root it like this, especially if you do it like on a day like today where it's overcast and you got a week of rain coming on, it should be fine. And especially if you leave some of the runner vine on. I've got no way to prove this, but it uses this to draw, you know, nutrients and supplies from the parent plant, right? That's what this runner vine is for. So by my way of thinking, when you cut it off, there's probably still some residual nutrient in that, like an umbilical cord. So by cutting it off and leaving it long as you stick the new one in the ground, maybe you're giving it 2 days worth of rations to sort of make it over until the roots can start doing their thing and taking over. But I found it works, right? I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. I've been doing this for a number of years. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but man, it works like 95% of the time. It's a lot easier than buggering around with little coffee cups and stuff like that, in my opinion. Because I mean, I'm almost done here, from a weedy mess to next year's strawberries. And if I wasn't filming this whole operation would have taken me probably 15 minutes. Right? That's the way gardening should be. I'm going to stick the rest of these in now. And as you can tell, I've done almost the whole garden with my bare hands. I brought some tools out, but I often find myself, it really depends on how things are going, I often find myself not needing the tools and just using my hands. There's something about having your hands in the soil and feeling around and just getting connected. I don't want to sound like too much of a hippie now, but it's just it's nice, and I think it plugs you in. You sort of get to know your plants because you know their conditions. I'm not making any sense here, but I'm sure there's some people that understand what I'm talking about. It's just a way of practicing your garden. It's a mentality. I got one more. It's really got no space, so I'll just stick it here. That's a nice big one. Alright, so I think we're all set here. There's another one. I'll jam that in there. Why not? Won't hurt anything. Doesn't hurt to try. Why not give them a chance, right? Now I'm just going to put some seaweed down in the open spaces. I've got lots of videos on seaweed. People are saying, oh, doesn't that put salt in the soil, and doesn't it do this, and doesn't it do that? And look, this has been rained on. But no, I don't do anything special with the seaweed. I usually, a week ago I got 5 buckets. I had the use of a truck that weekend, so I took advantage of it. Got 5 buckets. Usually the day I gather the seaweed, I don't put it on the garden. Not for any reason other than when I'm done gathering it, I don't want to do anything else because it's heavy. I'm tired. So, and I tend to do things on the weekends, so I usually gather it and I just sort of let it sit in the bucket all week. And then I use it as I need it. Now I'm not done mulching here. This is just for now, because I don't want to leave the soil bare. Notice I'm not doing anything special with this seaweed, I'm just leaving it the way it is. But the whole point of this is just to cover the soil with something. But when it starts to get really cold, I'll put hay right over the strawberries to give them a little protection from that over the course of the winter. And then the following spring, they'll just find their way up through that, no problem. I've covered them with seaweed before and that works, but experiments I've done in the garden has convinced me that in terms of holding in the soil's heat and keeping the soil warm, let's put it that way, hay seems to work better. And what I mean when I say that is that I have found that the gardens that are mulched with hay or straw or leaves, they seem to thaw out a lot quicker, and they seem to take longer to freeze. So they take longer to freeze and they thaw out faster because I guess they're not quite as frozen than gardens that are just completely mulched with seaweed. And seaweed has a lot of nutrients and it does a lot for your garden, but I don't think it insulates very well. This time of year I don't really care about that. I just want to, give the soil a good feed, and strawberries love seaweed. And there's some sand in here too. I guess that's minerals, I suppose. If you're one of these people that thinks rock dust does anything at all, well, sand is kind of like rock dust. Right? There's going to be people that disagree with me, but I think that's a complete and utter rip-off product to buy. And in fact, I just did a podcast about that the other day. If you go to my podcast website, maritimegardening.com, with guest Robert Pavlis, who wrote the book Gardening Myths. We were talking about what a rip-off rock dust is. So, hope my sponsor, Vessi Seeds, doesn't sell it. But anyway, there's no evidence to suggest that it does anything worthwhile. And all the things that are in rock dust that can possibly benefit your soil, they're probably already, unless your soil is really, really bad, those things are probably already in your soil. If you got healthy soil, those things are probably already there. And if you're adding mulches and stuff like that, I mean, what am I doing by adding this mulch? I'm adding minerals and nutrients to the soil. The plants aren't too fussy as long as they're getting something. It's not the plants that want this stuff, it's the things that live in the soil. Right? The things that live in the soil, they're going to eat this, they're going to live, they're going to die, they're going to poop. And all that is going to result in great soil. Okay, that's it. We're done. I don't know how much of an early summer, these are day neutral variety. They're the Seascape or Albion. There's two varieties I have in my garden. They're both day neutral, Albion and Seascape. They give you a crop in late June, early July, and then they give you strawberries, small amounts sporadically over the summer, and then in the fall they give you a nice crop in around October. So they're kind of useful. They don't yield quite as much as a June bearer, but they yield steadily and consistently, which is more preferable, I think, for the home gardener, right? So I don't know how much of a crop I'll get off of these in the June, how well the roots will be established. I'll get something in June, but certainly by the following October, it'll work out pretty good. So that's how you do it. That's how easy it is. If you got a friend with strawberries and they have runners, they're running out of time, but I think there's still enough time left to get them in the ground and get them established before the winter happens. If you're lucky, if you have a crazy winter that's insanely cold and so on, you never know with these things, but it's always worth trying, especially if you can get all the materials for free, and all you got to do is invest half an hour of your time. So from out of control weed bed to a beautiful perennial strawberry garden for next year, in about half an hour or less. Don't get overwhelmed, just get out there, get your hands dirty. I hope you found this information useful and it gave you some ideas for next year, and if so, please like, share, subscribe, and check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.